Welcome to the now second PGRV5 Roundtable. I'm, of course, joined here by the soon-to-be five-time PGR Falln, MDVA's Remzi, Canada's
Hello.
Zeke, CSL's Max Ketchum, and Kino, of
What up?
course, from SFL, sorry, not CFL.
Whoa, don't
I
confuse
know.
me with those guys.
CFL baby. I think I did definitely get the order wrong for Kino and Max on the left to right. So can I just switch that really quick right now and be messy? Let's see.
That's
Kino
okay.
right there, and then Max right. Oh no, Max right there. All right, we're professionals. So,
Beautiful.
thank you everybody for being here in this momentous occasion. Of course, we did have the Smash 4 Top 50 have its 31 through 40 revealed. My name is, of course, Suar, and on behalf of PGstats, thanks for coming in tonight. Let us know in the chat if there's any sort of technical issues that you want me to address. I think we sound and look great. But we are here to discuss some very serious topics as well as memes. So I just want to open up the floor by having each person tell us. Oh wait, Max, we got feedback.
We're good. I just refreshed the stream on my computer and it unmuted itself.
Cool. Really quick, we'll just go around, see how everyone's doing. So starting with Falln, how are you? Where are you? What's good?
I'm doing quite well. This is the fun part of the PGR because I don't have to worry about myself yet. So I got to watch everyone just duke it out on Twitter, and I'm just chilling.
Yeah, you dodged Area 51, so congratulations. Really happy about that.
I know that's the toughie.
Okay, awesome. Remzi, how's everything going in the great state of Maryland and Virginia?
Oh, I'm in one of those states, Virginia. It's pretty good. Every PGR is the fun part for me because I'm never have to worry. I'm never on. But
damn.
That's gonna change in Ultimate, and that's how. Just remember that.
All right, respect. And Zeke joining us from Canada, stranded in Canada, but still here today. How's everything been?
Good, man. Good. I've been doing lots of work. It's awesome to see where my students that I've been coaching for so long now are at, and I look forward to seeing where the rest of them are. That's where I'm most excited.
Yeah, of course. Today, Cosmos got signed by Panda Global. That was actually a surprise to me too. I'll be honest.
That's super hype.
And,
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, so definitely celebrations for that. He is a player that you yourself, Zeke, have tutored before. That's correct. He started about 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, I've been working with Cosmos for over 3 years now.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
3 years. Well, there you go.
You're a coach for that long.
So definitely great.
One of my first.
Yeah, definitely great to see all that pay off for him. I mean, he obviously deserves it. Now he's a fellow, like colleague in a way, and best wishes to Cosmos. Obviously, he's not revealed yet, but he is up there in the top 30, so we'll see how that plays out later next week. But in the sunny state of Florida, Kino, how have you been?
Pretty good. Coming off the back end of the Black Plague or something, but other than that, chilling.
What tournament were you just at?
I was just at Defend the North, which was a blast until I brought this sickness home with me. But I'm super hyped to see my boy MVD up there on the PGR, and I'm excited to see where my other Florida boy lands as well.
Okay, and that would be ESAM, but both of them do live in the Midwest now, right? Ohio?
They're Florida, Oklahoma, but also they're Florida. They're Florida.
All right, so I'm not going to debate that yet until we get to talk about it. But finally, we have Max Ketchum. How have you been, Max? How's everything going
pretty
since
good,
yesterday?
Living life, I'm also proud to see a couple of my boys here from the tri-state region on this segment of the PGR. And even though I never have to worry about being on it, I do have to worry about memorizing everybody's placing, and the 50 to 31 territory is really hard for that because they all kind of blend together at some point. But this one is definitely a very interesting segment of the ranking, so I can't wait to talk about it.
Great choice of word there, interesting. Very catch-all, some would say.
Yes, very specific and
very safe
targeted.
Of a word, very political, politically neutral.
And that's what my degree is in,
Let's go. Let's go college degrees. All right, so those are introductions, and of course, like I guess I'm obviously Suar here in the flesh, here to defend to the bone everything that's happened today and Tuesday and what's to happen but also just to have a good time. I know chat already wants us to talk about certain things, but the structure of today is going to be overall impressions of the PGR, overall impressions and reactions to 40 through 31, then predictions on 30 through 21, and then we'll have a little bit of Q&A in the end from the chat, as well as from some of our guests here who might have a burning question or two. And I imagine there will be many burning questions. So starting off, we'll go in the order of how the layouts currently constructed now that I switched Kino and Max. We'll start with you, Max, but do you have any overall impressions about the PGR in terms of, we're in the 5th iteration now. We are in the 3rd year and a half of Smash 4. Ultimate has been announced. Players are signed, players are not signed. Tournaments are still happening. Summer Smash underway. How do you feel about this release? Also, considering the fact that it's now on the Red Bull platform. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's talk about that first. I love that Red Bull has adopted the Smash 4 rankings as well as the Melee ones from quite a while ago. They've been housed under there. So thank you, Red Bull, for giving the scene another platform to stand on. It's always good to see.
Red Bull.
But yeah, in terms of the actual release, we spoke briefly about it yesterday at Zeno. I think this is a sentiment shared by pretty much most of the general public, is the density of Japanese players on the list. So I didn't expect to see so many of them, especially some of the ones that I did see. Not that they didn't have, phenomenal histories in Smash 4 leading up to this point, but also just because, their tournaments are also 12 hours in the future for us. So watching it is not as accessible. And I didn't know really how well some of them have been doing. Like, I didn't know Shiki would make an appearance, but I know he had a great run at EVO Japan. And I think a lot of people are surprised just by the sheer number of B and C tiers they had over there. I understand why, like we spoke about it briefly, and I've read both sides of the argument on Twitter since then. So shocking nonetheless, though, to see that many Japanese players. Again, they're extremely talented, and I'm glad that they're getting representation. Like, you jokingly asked, like, oh, is it a bad thing that, we're getting rep for Japan now? And I was like, oh, absolutely not. I'm not upset that they're getting their shine. But just in terms of like a global ranking, I feel like, there were a couple players that are more in the mainstream in US and other countries that could have had a shot on this, but the large number of qualifying tournaments in Japan definitely offset some things. So again, not necessarily a complaint, just a surprise.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said yesterday in the PGstats Discord, I never thought I'd see the day where I logged on to twitter.com and I'd see people complaining about there actually being Japanese overrepresentation on the PGR. There had been criticism in the past before about Japan not being represented enough, Europe not being represented enough. Shout outs to Australia. Of course, Mexico and Canada being the neighbors and the places where players from here can kind of go and give that exposure, like Mr. R, MKLeo, Vinny, MKLeo, etc. Definitely interesting to see how the times have changed. But I also know that people are reacting for the first time to seeing more than just a Choco not being in the United States, but making it on. So totally cool that you think that. Kino, in terms of, any of the presentation or releases, is there anything that you'd like to point out?
Well, something that's interesting to me, and it's generally something I'm always looking at when kind of, I guess, evaluating players, for lack of a better word, is consistency. Smash 4 has always been seen as kind of a hard game to be really consistent in, and now we're at our 5th PGR, and it's really impressive to see, while we've seen a lot of new faces hop up on there, we still see a lot of the same people, in the top 20 showing that they're strong players, able to hold that consistency.
PGR Falln.
Yeah, did you know that 5-time PGR Falln has joined the call?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's right there.
Yeah.
Or at least for me, is. But
I mean, you do gotta hand it to
think
him. Like, it is true. Like, we have had 5-time people make it in this game that is pretty much painted out to be RNG, the platformer. So
yeah,
that's pretty hype.
Yeah, basically. So that was always my biggest, most impressive thing to me was, these players just consistently being at the top. And I'm sure going into Ultimate, they're going to continue to be at that top level.
Yeah, and it'll also be interesting to see if they fall out. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, Zeke, what about you? Any thoughts initially on just the general release, the general scope of everything?
My favorite thing, having my background been graphic and web design, is how beautiful the PGR is becoming every single season. I love Spike. Oh my god, that kid is the best. And
Shout out to Spike.
shout outs to Spike. Everything he's ever made for me, I've loved him and Keith do
Magic.
the craziest things.
Literal
yeah,
magic.
literally magic. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But that's been the biggest thing, as well as just seeing the big shocker in how valuable B and C tournaments really are now, especially with the change from last season where it was like we had a ton of S tiers, and like when that became not really a thing, the value of not just going to the highest ranked tournaments, but kind of spreading yourself out, and not many people realizing that until it was too late.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge shift in the dynamics of this season. Not even discounting the fact that Zero is obviously retired and like the different people that he would beat that wouldn't make it to top 4 or even top 8 in some instances are now, kind of like roaming free. There is the fact that like back then we had like 9 S tiers and like all this crazy month to month back to back competition, but now in the scarcity, like a C and a B tier is enough to sometimes push you over the edge into a top 50, top 40, top 30 spot. So definitely interesting to see how people are reacting to that, given the fact that we're used to this 11-month circuit that has high octane tournaments, compendium goal funded Japanese, European, Canadian, Mexican players all the time, to now going to hey, we have a nice little regional. It actually ends up counting a lot because there aren't many other nice little regionals. So glad you saw that. Okay. And then Remzi, thoughts, anything pertaining to that or something new? We got graphics, shout out to Spike, consistency, and also what Max was saying, having 18 Japanese players featured in the 41 through 50. So that was hype.
I actually want to piggyback on a couple of those points that were brought up already. So Max talked about the concentration of Japanese players. And one thing that I think is really cool about that is how a lot of the Japanese players, like you mentioned, are able to make it now without traveling to the US. And the reason they're able to do that, in my opinion, is because they came here, they proved their worth, and now they brought back all these PGR ranked players. And now it's sort of a self-sufficient scene where they don't have to come here to farm wins. They have good enough players, proven players, to where they can kind of get their own new players ranked just from beating each other. And I think they deserve that because of just the density of strength of player there.
And I do want to highlight or take a moment to sort of not push back, but like address the concept of farming wins. I know that, and Falln probably felt this all the time, but when the 2GGC was going on, people were saying that SoCal players just farming wins. I don't know if you've been to a tournament personally, chat, and anybody watching, but when you enter the bracket and you actually have someone like Nairo or Cosmos walk up to you in your round 1, you have to beat them. And for a lot of these Japanese players, having Choco, Komurikiri, Abadango, like you don't just get that, So I think it's important to realize that like even though Japan, quote unquote, had this density of lower ranked tournaments, like they still had to beat those people, At least to me, that's like the real tea of it, It's like pretty crazy to still accomplish that, especially when you see their player cards like Kiriharas, Chocos, and Shikis, So.
Right. And the other thing that Kino mentioned about consistency, I think it displays itself in two ways. We talked about, players just getting on season after season, which of course is very impressive. But also, I like to see that. Well, it appears to me that we're kind of valuing consistency within a season more. The big complaint of PGR V1, if I recall correctly, was that a lot of people said, "Oh, this person had one great tournament, and here they are." And there's a certain Diddy main who plays for a certain Panda organization who I think a lot of people are upset about his placement, but I think the consistency shows, and I'm sure we'll get to that later, but
yeah,
just wanted to.
All right, definitely. Consistency, I mean, yeah, the beginning, the methodology changing each time, we'll get all to that. And then finally, Falln, any knee-jerk reactions, impressions, things you want to talk about at the onset?
I think just to put the whole 5-time PGR Falln. I think the most important thing is to put the whole Japan farming thing to rest, because it's not anyone who's sneaking on to the PGR for farming Japan. Like Kirihara is one of Japan's best players. He's at 50. he had to beat Ken and Void and Sue and others and like win his tournaments just to get the bottom spot on the PGR. And like if anyone thinks Kirihara is the 50th best player in Smash 4, then you're just smoking something. So, like, everyone who is Japanese and has made the PGR, like, they're all already established players, and I guess the newest face would be Shiki. But, like, these guys are actually, like, really good. It's not like they're abusing a system or sneaking on. And when you get to the point where people don't need to travel as much, because I know that was the problem with SoCal, was that they felt that SoCal players don't need to travel and perform. Like, it's one thing for SoCal when players are coming to you all the time, and it's good to reciprocate, because playing out of region is a lot different than playing in your home region. But we have a Pacific Ocean. Like, that's not an easy fix for Japan. It's expensive and it's a long ways away. So I think ideally, if you live very far away and you can prove that you're the best wherever you are, you should probably be able to get PGR at anywhere. But, you know, people are upset because you can't do it in Europe because the players aren't there. Maybe you can't really do it unless, like, you come out of Mexico into America. But, like, this is more of a step in the right direction than anything else. So
Okay.
that's my 2 cents on Japan.
Okay, yeah, and I definitely feel you on that, bias aside, but you know, people have feared into other instances where they think of things being like a positive feedback loop. Like Japan gets PGR'd players, now all their things become PGR'd, but we also see that they have a tough time, you know, because venue space is limited. The distances in Japan are also very far. People consider Japan a region when it's a country, similarly to how people consider like, you know, Canada a region when it's like it's also a country and it's very far. And so, like, people sort of underestimate what it takes to, like, actually be competitive in Japan. So it's nice to see, at least from, like, a top player perspective, the fact that, like, this representation, at least in this sense, is positive for now. You know, with some tweaking, of course, but positive for now. So thanks for that input. Moving on now into what will be essentially the main course of tonight is the impressions on the 40 through 40 through 31. Off the cuff, okay? Just I want to get names going around now in reverse order from Falln down to Max. What was your biggest surprise? Just your biggest surprise. Doesn't need to go in detail, and then we'll go from there. Okay, thank you, Falln, for answering so earnestly. Remzi, what's yours?
He took mine. If I get it back up, God, now I don't have a second one. Come back to me.
Zeke.
Vinny.
Okay, Vinny. Great. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, Vinny definitely, we'll get into it, but yeah, thanks, Vinny. So far, MD, Vinny, and then Kino, what's yours?
Probably Ally.
Ally. Okay, Max?
I'm going to go with Ally as well. Not that I'm too surprised based on the season he had, but just to see it is really like a reality check.
Okay. Remzi, you got one ready now?
It was Ally.
Okay. So definitely a lot there. And, you know, turning now to the list itself. Here on stream, I'm just going to go through the Red Bull article and just shout everyone out really quick. So at 40th, we had Rags from MDBA.
Can I introduce this first fella?
Oh my God. Okay, go ahead. Who is he? Who is he, Remzi?
Just take a good look at the screen. This is my flesh and blood right here, my own child.
Okay, interesting.
I love this kid. He's a fantastic player, and he deserves this spot so much. And he's the best meta knight in the U.S. And
Don't do this.
Okay. Okay. Moving away.
Scroll down.
Moving down. Time out.
I don't care what the rankings say.
So Rags, of course, at 40th, making it on. Awesome job to Rags. 39th, we had Tyroy.
Right?
Oh my God. Actually, if I refresh it right now, unless my computer breaks, it's been changed, I believe. And yes, it has. Cole Ragsagon. So thank you, everyone, by the way, for telling me the typos on my own post repeatedly. I really appreciate it. Helps me push, no, seriously, it helps me push the feedback, you know, through.
Oh, you do love
edits.
that. Okay.
I'm joking. It's really jarring. But 39th, we got Tyroy again. Congratulations. Also a Meta Knight secondary. AC, that's your boy Falln. Anything you want to say really quick about AC?
The best Falco main with a Meta Knight pocket.
I'll take it.
Making it into the second set. He actually has some really good wins in there, which I guess you can touch on later as to. I thought he was going to be like 6 or 5 spots higher than 38, but
yeah, X factor of -6 actually puts him back quite a bit, but he did jump 12 spots from last season. So congrats to AC, of course. Moving down to 37th, Neotono is back. I was really proud of Spike being able to change these player cards to really highlight the fact that, you know, we're not just going to show a 3x3 with a bunch of emptiness, because he hasn't been to America this entire season. So we had Umabura TAT, Evo Japan, and Umabura 32. So congrats to Neotono. 36, Captain L. Shout out to Zeke, I think, Canadian brethren. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I've been working with him. Out of the people we've gone over so far, like I've done work with Rags, I've done work with Tyroy, and I've done a lot of work with Captain L. And this man, he probably, out of all the players I know, he practices as much as like the top 5 does. He puts in the work, the mental work, the physical work, all of it. He has a full-time job. He makes the time. He deserves it, and I can't wait for him to do even better.
Big words, but I mean, definitely the results show. 36, first time appearance. Awesome job to Captain L. Also a Jig secondary, so that's
best Jigglypuff.
Yeah,
Best Jigglypuff.
What?
Jigs is on the PGR, guys.
Pac-Man Game & Watch, it's a party now. 35th, Shoyo James. Max, words. Do you have words for Shoyo?
Yeah, James is nasty, man, and I think that this placement kind of sells him short, as the little blurb indicates. He doesn't go to all that much stuff. Look at his little panel of A and S tier events, or just A tier and A plus tier events. He did not go to many. Frostbite and Smash and Splash, very impressive showings of both the top 8 and the top 16. The kid's a monster, man, and unfortunately, he actually has some real health problems that have been affecting his gameplay.
Yeah,
this guy, he's taking care of them at the very least. But yeah, man, you could ask him if you have hand health problems and you want some help with it. Definitely hit up Shoyo James. He'll pass along some valuable information on stretches and all that stuff. He's actually helped me a bit, because that's a real issue for me too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
so
go on. Yeah,
I'm just really proud of him. You know, he's only gone up in his Smash career. This guy has showed no signs of slowing down. 42, a great debut, and then 35 this time around. Again, expect that to climb. And if he's traveling like he should be for Ultimate, then he's going to be a name to watch out for.
Yeah, I mean, those hand issues, like, literally crippling in your play, and not something you can just ignore. So, you know, props for James to making and pulling it through, and also taking his health seriously, because that's something a lot of us should do.
And one more big thing.
Yeah.
Big props to James for his work with the community in New Jersey. This kid basically co-founded Master Hand Gaming. It's not easy to juggle all this stuff. Like I've tried it, like competing, commentating, running tournaments, all that stuff.
Yep.
Taking on more than one of those tasks at an event will undoubtedly impact the quality of any of them, but James seems to just effortlessly be able to do it all. And he really put the New Jersey community on his back in the last year and a half. And it shows. This guy is the man.
Definitely a lot of community leaders, producers, content creators, everyone always says how, like, you know, they want to stream, they want to TO, but like it always bites how they have to compromise by exiting bracket early, not entering bracket at all. So congrats to James, of course. And then another tri-state villain here, or homie rather. I only say villain because he comes every season out of nowhere and just like screws everyone's up. Vinny at 34th, 12 spots up from last time.
I've also got some words on Vinny, man. I think this is very interesting to see him as, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, the only PGR player who's not PR'd in his own region. Vinny is not on the New York City and Long Island PR. And, you know, that is not because of lack of skill. It's definitely a political issue. You know, Vinny has chronically disagreed with the way that things are ran over here, so he actually basically boycotts tournaments, and it's really interesting that he's still able to maintain such a high level of gameplay. I mean, 9th at CEO, that was an incredible run. And
at the end of the season,
locals.
Who's mans? Who's mans?
Dude, that's my point.
Just to make your life a little harder, Suar.
I know.
He shows that, like, the value in, like, hey, prepare yourself, do really good at one of the big tournaments, and then just go to a couple other, like, BC tiers, do pretty good, and you'll go. That he was the one who saw the system, and he got it. He worked it.
Yeah, this guy, you know, Vinny, of course, not gaming the system, like, beating to boss fatality, some sort of dark shot. I know you weren't saying that, but like those are feats that people wish they had just to have, you know. So definitely props there. And one last thing, Max, on Vinny.
Yeah, if you want to talk about farming wins, this is a guy who is not guilty of that at all. Again, look at that panel. One singular A-tier event, an A+, but still, and a great showing on it that definitely carried his ranking here, I think. And then 7th at Glitch in Port Priority 3. Unexpected loss to Len, the pit player there. And again, I think he lost to Silent Rain and Losers too. So not a very good opportunity for him to take home a lot of wins. And he still managed to clutch it out. No matter what people think about his skill, X Factor only of -4, so still in the top 40.
Yeah.
Vinny's the beast.
He's definitely at the front of, or the back of everybody's mind, when they're thinking about notable Sheiks. And even though he's not always in the center spotlight, he's always a threat. So congrats to Vinny. Then, of course, moving on to Ally. Would anybody like to take this one? I'll give it to Zeke only because of Canadian proximity.
No.
But who feels the strongest about Ally being at 33rd right now?
I think the biggest thing that this shows, and this is no attack on Ally, I've known him for many years.
He's a god. He's a god. Yeah, he's a
I
god.
love the dude. This is something that shows like the value and mindset, and obviously he had his own things going on. Everyone's got life and all that, but the how that shows in the game too, and how much people don't value that like you really have to have the right mindset when you're going to these events, because he went to a good handful, but just a little short every time, just a little short, and it's hard. And that goes to show like sometimes you got to put in a little more work, sometimes you got to truck through it a little harder. But I'm definitely excited for Ultimate though. I'm not worried at all for him.
Of course.
I love Ally, but he is, and I think he's one of just the most naturally talented players there is. But it just shows you he hasn't been the worker that a lot of these other players on these PGRs have been, and he's, I don't want to say carried by natural talent, but the natural talent that he has for this game, the experience he had with the Brawl, they lifted him very high in these first couple of seasons. But the longer a game goes, those workers are going to catch you. That hard work is going to catch the talent that doesn't work as hard. I mean, saying.
Falln. You can go.
His story in Brawl is very similar to his trajectory in Smash 4. He rose up, number 2 uncontested, started to make a play for number 1, and then just, kind of a slow descent from there. So,
like with Ally,
interesting that it works out like that.
With Ally staying as Mario the entire time, for the better part of his career, I know he's pulled out Rob, he's pulled out Marth, even I think a random Shulk, unless I was like remembering incorrectly.
Yeah, you got it. You're
right.
He's got Cloud.
The Diddy at Shine, oh my god, up throw to Peanut Gun or something, like okay.
Yeah.
What was that first tournament he used Diddy at? I think it was against like either Nair or Anti.
Shine. Or
yeah,
another one.
He used it. There was a couple, but the best one he did was at Shine because he saw Nairo do it versus Salem. So,
right.
Yeah.
It was Salem.
Yeah. So just to sort of like highlight how if you look at the top 10 classically, the players that made it last season, like Leo and Tweak, having this like almost quad main of repertoire, and Ally being just on Mario, like it shows that like this meta almost demands it, so I think people can kind of see, and he himself has said, like, along with the meme of Mario not being top 5, like that this sort of game is damning in that sense for solo mains, so for Ally, like the talent's there, and like he'll get to like really make that splash in Ultimate. I'm happy for him, but like of course this is something that no one wants to see, but like he takes it in stride, and he's already commented about it on Twitter. So congrats to Ally, even though I know this falls way below his own expectations and standards.
Right.
But yeah, not to get super sad. We do have Choco, so hype for Choco. Has anyone here ever played Choco?
Yes.
Okay.
I played him. Yeah.
How is he? Is he nasty? He's definitely nasty.
So yeah, one of the things with Choco is he plays in a he's one of the like Japanese players, like the stereotype of like, hey, I'm gonna take my time, I'm gonna kind of feel this out. But the moment that he's like, oh, I got it, he just runs with it right away. And especially his character enables that super hard, because once he can find that flow, that pattern, or that rhythm that he's looking for, he just blows you up. And it doesn't matter who you are. And the only thing is that kind of playstyle obviously does have the flaws. You can see that, he didn't do super well at every single event he went to. And, a lot of the Japanese players have that simplistic idea as well with what they're trying to do. So it definitely shows that, if they can do it a little bit better than he can that day, it's hard. But he's he's been one of the best since Brawl. It's never stopped. It's never changed.
Yeah, his wing card, Abadango, AC, Ken, Niatono, Shiki, like beautiful, honestly. And,
that's like killer lineup.
Yeah, and it's crazy, again, farming, but still crazy. But of course, this now brings us to the moment we've all been waiting for. Of course, throughout every ranking, there's always a situation that calls for intense controversy, and I think that would be 31st with MVD if I have read Twitter and Reddit and MySpace and LinkedIn correctly. It seems that people feel a certain way, but without taking away from this, he did make 31st. I know it's below his own standards, falling from 25th last season. But Kino, how do you want to usher this one in? What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? What do you want to say? Obviously, firm handshakes all around, but how do you feel?
Right. I mean, I think you said it best when you mentioned that this definitely fell below his expectations and standards. Him and Isam are both players that are always constantly trying to push themselves as much as possible. Both of them aiming for top 20 spots. So while I'm sure it's disappointing for MVD, but at the same time, this isn't something that's going to stop him. If anything, it's just going to motivate him to have an even stronger either next season or first season of Ultimate, or however that ends up working out. But he mentioned on his Twitter also he thinks a part of it is he didn't get to go to as many events as he wanted to. But I mean, he's got he's got 4 A or higher tier events in there, and I think similar to who was it? There's someone earlier we were talking to who just barely fell short every time. I don't know if that was Ally or someone else.
It was Ally, yeah.
It was Ally. Okay, yeah. I mean, looking at CEO and Frostbite getting 25th at those 2 very high ranked events, I think they were brackets very much in his grasp, but he just managed to slip away from him. Mm-hmm. And I think I get losses like those, or I don't want to say poor placements because these events are stacked. They're 25th, top 32 at these events is not bad by any means. Sure, but at the same time, again, it's going to be below his standards and expectations. And I think a part of that kind of matches up with where he ended up being ranked. But
yeah, no, of course. And public sentiment, reflects a lot of that with a +2 X factor, putting him at 29th at least in people's minds.
Yeah.
The X factor, again, like if you're not familiar with it or you just tuned in and it's been like 3 seasons since you've been paying attention, it's how the public rates you, underrates you, overrates you. So he has a +2 X factor. So in people's mind, he's a top 30 player, and
what's interesting, oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that was just it. Go on.
Oh, I was going to say what's interesting about that is in each previous PGR season, he had a -X factor. So this was the first time where, even before his ranking was revealed, everyone was expecting him to be ranked higher as well.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Falln, Remzi, Max, whoever.
So I remember...
Falln, go ahead.
You can go, Falln.
I remember PGR number 2. We had this big controversy of Nakat not making PGR. And he's like, oh, I got 9th at CEO. It's this big tournament. And we turned around and said, yeah, but you didn't beat anyone. Mm-hmm. And we've come a long way since then.
So I see where you're going with this. Can I complete your sentence?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so basically the story is we got the situation where MVD got 5th at Genesis, the 3rd highest ranked tournament of the season. Of course, Hyrule Saga CEO and Genesis 5 being the top 3. And he had a very interesting bracket only because the airliner matchup bodied the top 4 or 5 seeds. I don't know, Zeke or anybody can correct me on that. I mean, it was crazy. We had, I think Zero dropped out because he had announced a retirement, but they didn't take him out of the bracket. I know, obviously, the misfortune surrounding Tweak. Void, was he sick or something?
I think he dropped. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
As far as what actually affected MVD's bracket for Genesis, he was seeded to play Samsora, who had airline problem. And then I think Cosmos was also in that sub bracket. Yeah. And then Cosmos didn't show up either. So, and then those filtered eventually into MVD. And then of course, legit taking out Nairo. So we got three rounds where he didn't play the projected top player.
Yeah. The placing's definitely really good, but I mean, like the first thing you said, kind of similar to the Nakat situation. Who did you beat? We all know MVD is an amazing player, but we can see right there, notable wins. He just has Samsora.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
well, I wanted to point out that he still beat Supergirl Kells, Legit, and K9 on that run to 5th in Genesis. So not a terrible run at all, but of course none of those players are on this PGR.
Yep.
yeah,
And something I want to
go on.
I
Remzi.
want to point out as well is that so first of all, remember the PGR is an algorithm, and an algorithm can't account for things like that. So a 5th place at the 3rd highest rated tournament is such a huge deal, and you can't adjust the algorithm just to say that just because it doesn't pass the eye test. I understand the wins aren't quite there, but another thing is to remember, you look at something like a 1 in 11 and you say, wow, like how are you rewarding that? Imagine, for example, that you win a set against Leo and you lose 10 against 0. Should you be punished for that? Probably not. So you have to look at the quality of those losses as well. And I can't remember all of them, but I believe they were.
So I got
lot
him
of
right
higher
here.
players.
I got him right here because I enjoy where you're taking this because of course like let's not even sugarcoat it. Like being 111 having like a what 8% win rate is shambles to any eye, right? And of course if this is going to be touting the top 50 players in the world and da 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 da, then this must be the best of the best. And we've already passed 9 people who showed wins that were better than quote unquote MVDs. But when you're talking about quality of loss, MVD is the perfect example of what it is to lose who you're supposed to and not lose to who you're not supposed to. Because if you
Yeah.
look at EGLX, he lost to Samsora Mistake. Valid, bad bracket luck. He lost at DreamHack to Larian Anti, perfectly valid. At Frostbite, he lost to Shoyo James. Get on my level, he lost to Tweak and Locust. Locust being again making a breakout once again, but he's always been a strong player. Genesis 5 losing to Salem and Nairo, and CEO losing to Salem and Wrath. So, you know, these players have always been a part of the PGR conversation, the top player conversation, and that doesn't mean like, oh, let's just CEO losing to Salem and Wrath. What'd you say? Wrath. So, you know, oh, sorry.
I don't think anybody said anything.
Oh, sorry. It actually
Maybe.
came through like my own Twitch on my own stuff. Okay. Those losses put MVD at a position where his bracket was ended, you know, you want to say prematurely, you want to argue whatever, but like those were his losses. They weren't losses that quote unquote the algorithm took and rendered as gym losses. Those upsets, those Keitaros on mistake, those losses that like drag you down and deeply affect your score. What we implemented this season was this thing called the confidence factor, and we briefly discussed it in the we briefly discussed it in the PGstats Discord, and we've been trying to like properly put it into words, but the calculations basically came out to the fact who were you losing to and at what point in the bracket, and based on that metric, you know, it wasn't like a 50-50 split with your score, but like it was slightly adjusted to like almost like 15-20%. MVD had a higher confidence factor than most other players because he only lost to who he was supposed to. Players like DeBuzz and Elegant, for example, never lost to anybody that wasn't on the PGR, and that goes a long way. Added that is the fact that 5th at Genesis is something that when we talk about Nick Katz's 9th at CEO, the algorithm's been tweaked to now involve not just like that number placement, but who you're outplacing. The fact that he was outplacing the likes of all those players we described before,
Yeah.
and at the 3rd biggest event, in a way, quote unquote, carried him to 31st. Now, again, when you see something like 1 in 11, that doesn't seem right. But 5th at Genesis is also something you can't just discount. So hopefully that like quells a little bit, but we can go ahead and dissect it, starting with whoever wants to go first.
I think it makes a lot of sense. The confidence factor, it's almost like a creator side X factor. And I think if people were really as outraged as they are to see him clutch 31st on this, his X factor would be negative rather than positive, right? That said, I'm still looking at that hella weird, man. I'm seeing 1 in 11, and I'm like, you know, do you have the weight of wins? But obviously, again, it's an algorithm. And, you know, even in local PRs, you're going to see the same exact thing come up where some players, I mean, let's be real, they get a lucky bracket. You know, they're the benefactors of upsets. It seemed to happen to MVD only once, really, at Genesis, of course, but being
the one that mattered,
was such
of course,
a meaningful tournament.
Yeah,
exactly. It makes sense in terms of the formula. I'm glad that you guys now have, you know, that confidence factor thing, which kind of allows even the PGstats team to deviate from what the algorithm says. But again, we have that checked by the community. And we've seen, I believe MVD has had a very negative X factor in the past while being ranked pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's funny that now people are starting to finally accept him as good. I've actually kind of noticed that same cultural shift around MVD where people are like, okay, you know what? Like, fine, he's good. We got it. Like, enough seasons in a row of seeing him place well or like beat people. And yeah, you know what? He's got it. So that's reflected in the X Factor. But, you know, if I were filling out that survey, I would not have thought when I saw him, oh, he's only 1-11 against the top 50. So, like, be careful with what you're clicking. I did not know that information prior. So, I don't know. It's definitely very surprising. I think the player card itself is what kind of gives it away. If you had just, like, not included that statistic, people probably wouldn't have said too much about it because, like I said, the X Factor indicates that people are pretty willing to accept how good he is.
Valid.
I think the X Factor proves that when people are upset at MVD being where he is, it's not because anyone thinks MVD is a bad player. We all know MVD is a top level player, but it definitely is indicative of an issue with the algorithm, or at least there's a disconnect between what the average person thinks is important and what the system perceives as important. Because even if we take, for example, his one PGR win, Samsora, which was at a C tier in losers, if, let's pretend, he lost to Samsora at DreamHack Austin and got 5th at that tournament, he probably still would have made PGR, and then you'd have a person in the top 50 without beating any top 50 player. And if that sounds like reasonable, then I think there's a disconnect between what most people expect from a top level player and what the system is rewarding. So the confidence factor, like, it's cool. And I think it might benefit me down the road too, because I always felt like I'm one of the players that will do about as I'm expected to, but I don't always make the big upset. So I understand how that does protect those players. But at the end of the day, if you have 6 months, you should be beating these people, especially at 31. When you're playing the 40 through 50 people or the 35 through 50 people, you should be beating them too. But even when he's playing like Locus or Meister, or not Meister, Locus or Shoyo, you know, he's picking up the L's there. So it just feels very off for the wins to be the way they are there.
Yeah, and I think when you see somebody like that, when you talk about that classic, like, beats the people that are like, in this case, he's beating everyone not in the PGR, losing to the ones on it. I think the eye test tells you that puts you around the 50 mark, like just around that edge. But I mean, again, we know it's an algorithm. I'm sure the PG team, like they've done before, they're going to look back at it and say, hey, was there, you know, if they feel confident and they like where he was, then they'll keep it. If they think maybe this time we need to adjust for the future rankings, then I think they will. And I think based on feedback, that's probably the direction they'll go. But I mean, that's up to Suar and his team.
Yeah, and
I
just
test, I think it doesn't pass, in my opinion.
yeah, no, I mean, I don't think anyone's in disagreement there, and also take into account the fact that this is, like I said earlier, a different season, and we were reacting with like the TTS and all that, the tournament tier system, the standards of last season, where we were trying to prepare for this like back-to-back S tier every month, these circuits that would come out, but like obviously the last 6 months played out very different, didn't they? And to make such a dramatic change in the middle season would dramatically affect everything. So what MVD, it happens to be MVD, which is of course also funny because Lilat Beautiful, all this other memeage. I'm just saying it just happens to be him. Like if it was someone else, like the controversy gets amplified, but like he is really the product of a situation where a blind spot on the algorithm could lead to something down the road, but also there's so many components to it involving set wins, who you outplace, this confidence factor, C and B tiers mattering more, that you can end up with something like that. And so, you know, I sustain all these criticisms. They're totally valid. I mean, next season, you know, when we're looking at things, like we want to like react to what's happening, but at the same time, doesn't invalidate the whole ranking system. I don't know, but you know, for MVD's case, like it's definitely something that people will probably always question until the end of time. So, any other thoughts on that, Zeke? You were shaking your head and nodding a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So the biggest thing that I really see with all this is just like, I think Falln put it really well. Like the value, like what does the algorithm value and what do we value, and do we change the algorithm in any way to value what the people value and like all that, like what changes? Do we change what we feel, or does the algorithm need to change? Whether it's slightly tweaked or like, taking a right turn completely in how you go about certain things. And that, that's all up to your guys' discretion. But this is definitely a great example of like, wow, like how do I want to word it? Like, you were on the ranking before, how protected are you in a sense of being on the ranking next time? And, it does go to show he did drop 6 ranks. And that's something that nobody really talked about, is he dropped. And his performance explains that. But the question is, how much do we kind of keep that value of like, oh, he did well last season and he kind of did well at the beginning of the season, and then it just kind of like starts to spiral. How much of that like protection value or the confidence, like, does that actually save them from just dropping into the 50s or even Area 51?
Yeah.
Because that's happened before.
Yeah, and I mean, there's obviously no legacy bias here, and we have seen people drop, from the rankings before, so it is a thing. But obviously in this situation, I think people wanted to just see like a 50 or I'm out, So
yeah,
I definitely see that. Any other closing thoughts before we go into predictions and Q&A?
Definitely. Oh, you first, man.
Okay. Well, I actually wanted to piggyback on something you had said originally. Was you brought up you brought up something about local PRs, and it's interesting because when we do the PR in South Florida, we have kind of a similar situation where we'll like put all the PR players and contenders and their head-to-heads and everything, and at the back of it we'll have their overall ranked record. And when you see a record that says like 1-11, or any record, but something like that, you have to be careful with it because like Suar mentioned, it really does matter who those 11 losses are to. If his runs at like CEO and Frostbite were beating all the players he's expecting to beat, and then he keeps like immediately running into a top 20 player or a top 25 player, someone he's quote unquote supposed to lose to, just again and again and again, but he's not losing to any of the people around his area or below his area. It's just something to look at. That, and going back to what the algorithm values versus what we value, going back to the local PR thing, when we look at it, we'll take these records and we'll say, well, this person has such and such record overall, but person A might have maybe 1 or 2 wins less than person B, but if the wins they have are higher valued wins, or if the losses they have are quote higher valued losses, then it wouldn't affect them as much. So I think the bottom line of it is who the wins and losses are to against, and if the people below him have losses to people that are maybe not even on the PGR or lower in rank, okay. I think that can go towards explaining MVD's spot as well.
Okay, Max, you got something to say? Bars?
I'm sorry, I can't help laugh at how funny it is that MVD just hosted this stream. Thank you, by the way. But right as everyone is cooking him, this poor guy, all his fans are going to have to come listen to this now. Well, I will preface this by saying that I love MVD disagreements about the terrible stage that is Lilac Cruz's side. But
oh my God,
what I wanted to point out
is
that if you look at the set counts versus the current top 50, or the upcoming top 50, on even the 50 to 41 section, for one, nobody has as low as a win rate as MVD, but the people that come closest are 6WX, who is 2-11 with a 15% win rate. So literally one more win against the top 50 player than MVD does. But the 2 people that they are Cosmos and DeBuzz, which are, in my opinion, equal or greater individually than Samsora. Like Cosmos and Samsora are almost certainly both going to be right next to each other in the top 10. DeBuzz even higher than that. And it really shows the value of placing high at an A-tier event, like where MVD got 5th at Genesis, 6WX got 33rd. And then he has 2 9ths at B tiers, Glitch 4 and Collision 15, and then a 3rd at Port Priority, which is a very successful placement, in terms of points on the ranking. So you could still see that only landed him 16 points below MVD. Then you look at Zenyu, and he's 2-10. So 1 more win and 1 less loss. He has wins on Falln and Mr. R. Like, again, I'd say the 2 of those put together outclass the win on Samsora. 3rd place at a C tier, 9th at Genesis. So, he has a lot of good placements, 2 17ths at A tiers as well. So it makes me just wonder how exactly it could spit out such a low ranking for Zenyu and such a high ranking for MVD. And I don't know. I mean, again,
but also, like, who did he lose to?
Right, that's another thing. The confidence factor could be very low for somebody like Zenyu. But I mean, he has overall fairly solid placements here. So I'm imagining anyone who got that far in bracket is a pretty respectable loss.
For sure.
But yeah, man, just shows that pure statistics can definitely create misconceptions. And then a bunch of the Japanese players who people are causing controversy over their existence, let alone placement on the PGR, have nearly like top 25 level win-loss ratios. Like Shiki has a 50% ratio, 7-7 against the current top 50. Kirihara, 3-4. You know, these are really impressive rates. So it really just shows, again, placings are valued very, very highly over wins and win rates on this ranking. So it's, again, if you have a problem, take it up with the formula guys. It's kind of weird to say, but like that's what's going to change between seasons, and I guess they can learn from there.
Okay. One last closing thought. Does Falln have something to say? 5-time PGR Falln, I'll give you the floor.
Just to talk about the confidence rating, because I already said my piece on the algorithm. I think the confidence rating should have been on the player card, because when you put up a player card that says, look at this guy, 31 in the world, like who do you show it to? It's a 1-11 record. It shows the wins at the bottom. So the card itself is already showing that it wants to let you know who you're beating, what your records are like. But if the algorithm cares so much about your confidence, maybe that should be on the card as well. Say, hey, MVD has a 90% confidence ratio against randoms, and that's something we care about. That's why it's on there. And then if you have, someone like Anti or someone who does lose a lot more early on, like it's fine too, because you're like, oh, this guy only has a 60% confidence thing. You can still make a narrative out of that. Be like, wow, when this guy's on a really hot day, you can expect these types of wins, but hey, they don't come all the time. And then you can be able to show through the card, hey, MVD, not the kind of guy who's really going to break out a lot of the time, but hey, this is where we expect him to be. He'll probably get that. And I think it would have benefited him, at least when he wants to defend himself, if he could at least point to a confidence interval and be like, this is why I am where I am. But when all you can show is a 1-11, it does look like very bad.
Sure.
Can I ask you guys a question? Based on what we've discussed about MVD and why he is where he is and the players above and below him, I guess what the PGR in essence is supposed to say, who the best player in a tournament setting is. So do you think, based on his performance last season compared to the ones below him, he would be more likely to outplace the players below him? And I think you could make a case for it based on that confidence rating. But
you could.
What do you guys think?
MVD is very consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just looking at the page with the 40 through 31, his placings around Shoyo. It's hard to compare to the Japanese players who haven't been able to come over to the States too much, and they're obviously very talented. I feel like you can't really judge based on this, but if they were able to be at tournaments in America more consistently, they'd probably be significantly higher, but you can't really account for that at all. But of the other players that he typically competes with, I would definitely say, he is, you can see him placing above all of them pretty consistently, except for like maybe Ally. Ally's really good.
Yeah, so to close that section out, the 40 through 31 thoughts plus the MVD diatribe, there's obviously work to be done, but at the same time, we've moved more towards now branding it as an empirical ranking as opposed to objective, because as we just saw, if there's someone tweaking the algorithm, then it's subjective to what's important. So like, Falln mentioned, like he has now this like newfound insurance with this confidence rating, but at the same time, we're trying to create a situation in which we're trying to sort of, get the signal out of all the noise that's going on tournament to tournament, all the placings, all the upsets, all the different sizes of tournaments, and getting that signal from all this interference of like, there's a DQ in this bracket's round robin, someone decided to enter last second, they're not reseeding even though the top 4 seeds are not going. This is the product of that and our response to it. So we're receptive to that feedback. We understand that there are situations where like something doesn't pass the eye test, but at the same time, from like what we ran in the beginning, one instance of that did not call for an entire restructuring of the algorithm from our perspective, only because there is still a lot of accuracy left in the top 30 that we still haven't even seen, to the point where like by the time we get to the end, we're like, oh yeah, well that makes sense now. So apologies for like I guess like the surprise, but it's just kind of how it happened, if that makes any sense. Um, but moving on, predictions. So, or actually not predictions, Q&A. We'll go to predictions first before Q&A, because we are hitting 9 o'clock now. But off the cuff, starting from Falln down to Max, do you have someone for sure that you think is going to make 21 through 30? And maybe a sentence why. Falln, do you have one or do you need a second?
I think I have a good idea, like the back half of like 26 through 30 part.
Give me one. Give me one.
Give you one, Zanotto.
Okay, Zanotto.
He has the big win, but I don't think he's really been to a whole lot. So I don't know how he could get into top 20 with not as many results, but he should still be in the PGR somewhere. So makes sense.
Okay, Remzi.
I'll say Wadi and Mars for the exact same reason. Fantastic top tier players, collected a few great wins, but didn't have the consistency we're used to, nor do they show up to the amount of events that we're used to.
Bodied by travel, Wadi and Mars. I respect that. Zeke?
This is going to be kind of the last section where we see the few Japanese players who had really good breakouts, but don't come here a lot. So that's where we're going to see like Ken, Shuton, and like Kamim, and maybe Raito. It might be like right on the edge of it. But those four are definitely going to be like, this is exactly where they fit in perfectly with the changes to the algorithm. And it definitely affects them not hitting the top 20 because they can't come enough.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always a thing too, like, is the PGR just rewarding attendance? Is it rewarding absence?
Yeah.
I've had so many top players, Falln included, saying, if I don't compete for the rest of the season, am I gonna be okay? And it's like asking, like, if you're in a class, if you just stop taking tests while everybody else does. And it's kind of hard to answer. Like, if everybody else fails and they end up curving it hard and your zeros end up becoming, like, positive, like, it's hard to answer. But, like, definitely, attendance has always been a factor. And it's hard when, like, some people have access to going to every single S tier. They have a sponsor. They have a team. They have the resources. Other players literally live in another country. So, definitely feel that. Kino, one pick, maybe two, 21 through 30?
Two of mine were taken from Remzi and Zeke. I'm gonna say then, just keeping it Florida. Also, I'm gonna say Esam, another obviously very top level player. I think he has the potential to be even further. I think he's the potential to be top 20. This season kind of seemed like he was able to hold his own and compete with some of the very top ranked players, but then would also lose to the players ranked maybe like a small step below them. So I think that's gonna put him around like the 20 mark. I think he's going to be like towards like between 20 and 24. That's my prediction for his spot.
Okay, fair. Yeah,
because of that.
Esam always historically in that realm, top 20 plus or minus 5 player, right? Max?
SDX, man, the young god. I think everyone's forgetting about him. That kid's a monster, best player in upstate New York. And if I had to throw another name into the hat, also one that I think has been bit forgotten is Wrath. He has a pretty good shot at being in this top 30. Otherwise, he's just not on it, which I am not sure.
I felt like if he was going to be on it, would have been today, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, okay. I guess he exceeded my expectations. I really haven't been paying attention to him all that much this season, but I know he had a good run at CEO, and I'm sure there's a couple other tournaments that he went pretty hard at because, he's still really strong.
Yeah, okay. So we got names like SDX, Esam, obviously A-list Japanese players that aren't A-list here because they're not in the public eye so much. Wrath and Mars, and then Falln. Who did you mention?
Zanotto,
of course. Yeah, Julian Carrington from the Midwest. So yeah, I mean Monday will be here pretty soon. I hope it never comes, to be honest. But I think it was pretty cool civil discussion. I really appreciate that. Flame me on Twitter, but like here at least you guys kept it cool, so I appreciate that. But opening now to Q&A since it's now 8:58 and we're supposed to end at 9, but it might drag a little. Any questions you all have that you want to pose to the panel before we go to chat and get memed out of our minds? Or do we just go to chat and get memed out of our minds first?
I saw a very good question in chat that I'd like to address.
Okay, pocket that. All right, pocket that limit.
I have a
For 15 seconds when Ultimate comes out.
Remzi, what do you got?
question just directly for you, Suar. Based on the discussion we had today, is it possible in your mind that eventually we might have, after the algorithm, sort of like an adjusted ranking? Or is your preference to just kind of stick with the algorithm but just fix the algorithm as needed?
Oh, it would be unprecedented to redact the rankings to the point where we put a new one out only because of the
Oh
nature
no,
of
I don't mean that. I mean like in the future, like after your team sees the rankings come out, instead of just keeping it whatever the algorithm says, start moving pieces around afterwards based on like what you think it looks like.
So we've never done a create a list, move pieces to fit the eye test. We've done create a list if it doesn't look like, change parameters. The reason being is that
Ah,
if we start shifting around, then there's no point of having an algorithm. You just go to a panel.
that's
And
true.
if we wanted to do that, we just pop up true skill, save the trouble, whatever it says, adjust it to what looks right, you know? But we have to tweak these parameters. And like the thing is that I've always said it, but like 21 through 50 for me is always my most unfavorite part of the release. 41 through 50 is amazing because everyone that makes it's always happy. They immediately put it in their Twitter bio. Everybody celebrates it. Yo, my boy Blank made it, blah, blah, blah. You know, and like everyone talks about like
Yo, Blank made it?
no, like Blank came. Oh
Just
my
kidding,
God.
just kidding.
And then overall, it's a great time. It's a great time. 41 through 50 is like Christmas. All right, I got the perfect present for every kid. That's what 41 through 50 feels like. Then 31 through 40 comes, and it's like shambles, my guy. It's like because the algorithm, in the sense of like how sensitive it is outside of top 20, if you adjust a parameter for, let's say, attendance or wins, you can get a completely different 31 through 50. Only because so many things can shuffle around. And so after we create a list, we see an eye test. If it looks right, all of a sudden we got, I don't know, God, what, like, yeah, we got Qatar on top 50. We definitely got to adjust it, you know? So jokes. But like that's what we do. But we've never taken the list and then been like, let's push the scale afterwards. So hopefully that answers that. Zeke,
answers
did
it
you have a
perfectly.
question?
Thank you.
Yeah. So the only thing is, I know that you guys take a ton of input and like criticism on like how the formula works and all that for this season, and then start preparing for the next season. Is there ever going to be a point where we get alerted a little bit ahead of time before the end of the season, where it's like, for example, like no one knew about like the confidence values and stuff like that? So the fear is people gaming the system and all that as well, but also being able to have some sort of basis of knowledge, like what actually counts. But you don't have to say what I would do personally is like, these are all the things that count, but the exact amount, obviously, we're not going to tell you. But all these things are important, and you should care about all of them.
Yeah, so that's always been a thing we've grappled with, only because when it comes to like this season, I think in retrospect it was a mistake, but hiding the values of the tournaments on the TTS, like just having it just be tiered instead of like it's this much or that much.
Yeah.
There were reports from top players saying that some people are waiting to the last minute to register, and because of that, like
Yep.
if you got a tournament and it's like a C tier and it's in like Kansas, you're like, I'm gonna miss that. But then everybody registers at midnight and now it's a B tier, maybe an A tier, and you're like, the flight prices are $400 now. What am I gonna do? So like it's difficult, and that's constantly a values and ethics question that we grapple with. But Tass has linked this article before, like on Twitter, but like having what you need to care about said from the beginning can sort of morph the entire direction of the competition. But then other people are talking about everybody needs to know what's important all the time. So it's like something that we try to be as just transparent as possible for. And also, whenever it is that we do have like the ranking, or not the rankings, the methodology like perfectly laid out, like people still ask, like where is it? And so we explain it, and like nobody cared about the methodology so much until now. But there's also that new like integration of like the confidence factor, although it's like a little bit lower than like relative to like set counts and placements.
Yeah.
But like that's a lesson learned. And so going forward, like, we want to do more write-ups, we want to do more stuff concerning that, and also produce the PGR and also keep track of everything. So it's something where like I'll take that L and like learn from it, and say, all right,
Yep.
when the season's over, when it's all like the book closes at CEO Grand Finals last hit, this is what ends up being like what makes up the entire PGR instead of afterwards. Where like I wanted to do a write up after and be like, this is what we did, these are the changes, but then I realized that it was kind of like backwards order. So like again, I have to hold that. So that's that.
Yeah. It's all learning.
Yep. Any other questions before we go to chat? Kino, Falln, Max.
Nope, I'm good.
Good.
My
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
first big question was mostly about rating tournaments, but you already touched on that. Something that I had been toying around with as an idea, and I did mention it in the PGstats chat already, was the idea where in the future you could take the 6-month PGR season and then have a midway point where you kind of get a good idea of where the players are. Because, for instance, you can have a player who is a shoe-in for PGR on the next one, but if they're not on the old PGR, then they don't like contribute to a tournament getting a certain rating, even though they've like already proved themselves at that point. And then, you know, someone like Ken could be a top player in December. You beat him in January while he's like a top 15 win or whatever. But then by the end of June, you know, he hasn't been able to travel, and now Ken is like a top 27 win. And now, even though you beat Ken while he was active and still very good, you're not getting the same sort of reward.
So the thing is that the wins are not calculated when they happen. It's at the end of the season. So for example, before Mistake made the PGR last season, he was, in the eyes of the algorithm, a random, right? And so at the end, though, after his relative power level was like measured against everybody else because he had all these sick wins, all these sick placements, then that's the comparison made. But I do see what you're saying. For instance, if like let's say, because I mean I think we all know that Zero's not PGR this season. If Zero entered next season at like Big House 8, first of all, what would you seed him? Second of all, how would that win count? Again, that's something that would count at the very end of the season once it all stacks up. Once Zero wins a bunch of tournaments, once people, you know, beat Zero, he beats people. And so hopefully that answers that. But at the time that you beat someone, you're getting the thing is that like not the problem, but the issue in sort of doing the PGR, creating the storyline, making a basis for rating tournaments is the fact that when you have like these tournament point systems being valued on like PGR player attendance, you're gonna have situations where like someone retires, or like someone new is just better, or like someone that is PGR gets worse or gets countered by the meta. And that's just like unfortunately a reality we have to deal with, on top of the fact that like the game's inconsistent to a degree, and attendance and tournaments and regional like bias is also something we have to deal with. So hopefully that answers that, but I want to follow something up that Tass is actually asking in the chat, specifically to you, Falln. He said, ask Falln whether he would go to the last event of the season if he knew for a fact that he could not go up on the rankings unless he won the event.
No, of course not. There's actually several events that I would dodge just because I think it's not going to do good for my ranking. So, for example, Port Priority was doing a tri-state themed tournament, and it was a C tier, and they wanted me to go up. But why, if I'm looking out for my ranking, why would I go to a tournament that is highly condensed with people who come from the region with the most amount of good Rosalinas? Because all the tri-state people are godlike versus Rosalina, so why would I go up there just to lose? Or you know, have a harder time. So I'm definitely thinking about my ranking whenever I pick a tournament.
That's
So
a really
This is how
valuable.
you get a 5-time PGR win right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta respect Fallon's perspective, and like I think it's very valuable only because that's just one instance where a player is deciding not to go somewhere to quote unquote protect their ranking, but at the same time, like on a larger scale, if you knew that you would or wouldn't go up or down based on an event attendance, then that could in itself destroy certain marketing plans, certain like compendium goals, certain things. So like not to say that we need to keep everything like behind the curtain, but at the same time there has to be tact in like what is exposed to people to see. Because like if Fallon's not going to go to the last event of the season because he knows he'll drop if he loses even a single match, and that last event is I don't know, like Big House or something, and they are trying to fly him out to like bring the overall, sort of notoriety of the tournament up, and that happens with Falln and Ally and Mistake and Captain Zack, then all of a sudden all those players dodge, so that's an anti-gaming system where like it's an unfortunate truth where people find out at the end what ended up counting and how, but also like we're dealing with a lot, just to highlight that. But you've been sitting on this limit charge for a little bit, Max. What did you see from the chat that you wanted to ask?
Dude, I'm so tight because it was Fallon's question.
All right. Well, I guess you used
Too
your
quick.
climb hazard, and it didn't hit.
That's why I haven't been ranked on any of these 5 PGRs.
You yourself?
That's why, man. No, like I'm saying, Falln beating me to the punch is exactly why he's 5-time PGR Falln, and I'm 0 for 5.
Got that up there.
I just want to address something in the chat that came about Nairo. J-Ron Aaron mentioned that Nairo avoided the last Xanadu because him entering it would make it a PGR event. But the reason he did that was because he contributed to the pot bonus. So if he entered, he didn't want to play a Zero Suit because that would make it like kind of comic interest. Yeah. So, but the reason he couldn't enter is because he didn't want to enter and then play Bowser the whole tournament and then have his PGR impacted. So that wasn't him dodging an event. That was a little bit different.
Yeah, and that even brings me to the point, and I guess Fallon could probably feel for this a little bit too, but like back when MSM was the local to be, only because you'd have those 2 GGCs pour in with like a random Monday night being MK Leo, Kamame, Komura Kiri, throw in Javi, right? Like that was your normal MSM. And people were like, this is an A tier, and like, someone upsets Kamame, of course, and then people were like, wow, like this doesn't count, like how could they? Now you're talking about a situation where like I'm Fallon. First of all, the drive to MSM's long. Now my ranking's on the line. I'm not gonna go to that local. So like that whole local argument put to bed a long time ago. But like you start to see these arguments creep up in a larger scale and in scales that people don't understand in particular because they're not a top player like Fallon having to plan his flights ahead of time, or they're not someone that's involved behind the scenes and sees that like I need to market my tournament. Frostbite 2019 is gonna be lit because I got so and so like coming, So it ends up being like a really complex issue, and then at the same time it needs to be a ranking. So constantly grappling with those issues. I get a ton of sleep, I promise you. It's obviously something that doesn't weigh on my mind at all. So yeah, that's that on that. Any other questions before chat? I think chat's been asking the whole time. Any?
I think we're good.
I'm good.
Okay. I guess let me begin it by asking a question myself. Asking you guys a question. Seeing how the PGR is involved in like the marketing of events, and like anytime someone gets signed, it's like referenced. How does that compare? Because I think all of you were here. How does it compare to the Brawl days? What was it like then to be a top player compared to now? Without using the word shambles, go.
I mean, so
Falln,
you go first.
Falln, and then we'll go down the line, ending with Max.
Okay. Well, okay. So if I'm, playing Brawl and I'm a little Kirby main in SoCal, and like the best I ever got was rank 6 on SoCal PR. And I would go out to my friends and they'd be like, so what do you do? I'm like, well, I go to tournaments for Smash Bros. And they're like, how good are you? I go, I'm rank 6 in SoCal. And they're like, oh, but video games are all won by a bunch of Japanese players, right? So how good are you in the world? I'm like, well, I have to, think about how strong it is over there and compare a bunch of wins, and then I can never give a good answer. So I just like there being a list where I can be like, I've been 4-time, soon to be 5-time PGR Falln. I'm amazing. Like, look at this. Like, it's great. It streamlined my conversations with basically everyone.
Okay, Remzi. Brawl to now.
Streamlined your entire persona, my dude.
Hell yeah. It's so easy now.
Yeah, it's a world difference. I mean, Falln alluded to it, just having that point that you can point, or that single point of reference that you can kind of direct to. But beyond that, I mean, I think it's almost bigger for people that aren't directly involved in the scene than it is for the people that are in it. when you think about sponsors or just other organizations who are looking at Smash and who don't necessarily know these names, I mean, the PGR has gotten to the point where everyone knows this is the list to look at. If I want to know how good somebody is, I don't need to start parsing through data, watching videos. I look at this list and I know this is how good people are, and that is just huge to have.
Okay. Thanks. I think that was a compliment. Zeke?
So one of the hardest things about Brawl, and I grew up in Tri-State, and that was the single most condensed area of good players to probably exist in Smash, in my opinion, especially for Brawl, just East Coast, like, as a whole.
In the States, right?
Yeah, in the States, yeah. It was just like East Coast was like densely compressed. Like there was like 20 people in New Jersey who were like, wow, all of these people could win a tournament. And there was no proper way to tell who was actually the best. And every day it was like, who's better? Who's the best Meta Knight? Who's the best Ice? Blah, blah, blah. It was so hard to actually do that because everyone had a good day or bad day. But I definitely agree with Remzi. Like the whole thing is the PGR gives a reason for companies and organizations and all that stuff to really care at all. Because before it was like, oh, I have to check Smash Wiki. What have you done? And that can just be edited and anything. And you could take advantage of that kind of stuff. But this is just like, just straight raw numbers. Like I earned this place for this entire this season. This is why you should care about me. And instead of trying to be like, yeah, I went to this tournament, I won this, and a company being like, cool, but have you done anything else before? And that was a hard thing to do before. But just the fact that we have something for people to work towards as well as for somebody on the outside to care about, that's definitely the biggest thing to bring people from around the world inside and outside of the game.
Okay, so an added sense of legitimacy. Let's go. Kino?
Yeah, I mean, I want to piggyback also on what Remzi said with the sponsor thing. When I was working for Team Elevate, they wanted to get into the Smash community, into the Smash scene rather. The first thing we were looking at is who is the best player that we can pick up. We had Larry was already sponsored before I signed on with them. We ended up picking up Mr. R. And that was, again, the PGR was the first place we went to. Who's not sponsored that can win a tournament right now? That's who we want. That we want the best player, and the PGR would tell us who that's going to be. In Brawl, I feel like even if we had something like a PGR in Brawl, and I know towards the end of Brawl's lifespan we had like a melee on me type thing. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah,
what
it was from Clash tournaments.
Yeah, that's right. But so in Brawl, you could have been ranked number 1, but you're not going to. At the time, the game just wasn't big enough to have these companies say, we want to sign you, we want to fly you to these events, we want to pay you a salary, so on and so forth. So I think the growth of the Smash community has definitely aided the PGR in its legitimacy, in the sense that the game is big enough that this list can define, if you're a top level organization and you want to pick up a top level player, one, you have a reason to now because the game's big enough, and two, the PGRs, this is where you will look towards.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think Falln can echo on a lot of that. And lastly, Max.
Yeah, so same thing with Falln. Back in Brawl, I made it to 6th in my state and had an awkward time explaining what that meant. Especially coming from Jersey and SoCal, these were really tough regions. So I felt very accomplished and I knew what it meant. But, to tell your friends, yeah, I'm the 6th best player in the state, what does that mean really, right? And now there's this iconified thing to look toward for these players. So I'm very glad that we have this legitimacy. I think that's the buzzword that everyone's going with. And I want to take kind of a different answer to this and say the best thing about the PGR is that it is emblematic of the leadership that we lacked so much in Brawl. And now we have really made some serious strides for it in Smash 4. Yeah. People might give you guys hate and question the PGstats team, but you guys are doing God's work out here. Let's be real. No one else is willing to do it aside from my man Cloudhead. Shout outs to that guy. I don't know if that's conflict of interest here on a PG stream, but he's doing
No, we're
great
friends.
work as well.
We're friends. We're friends.
Yeah.
He got a lot of crap for the WWR, the Wi-Fi Warrior rankings, and he was
Oh yeah,
feeling,
yeah, you came to his aid, man.
he was feeling a certain type of way about it, and I messaged him and I was like, hey, I know a thing or two about releases, and he was like, dude, yeah, like I don't know if I want to do it again, you know, and like I was like, you got to, like you got to keep doing it, like you got to push through that initial, but yeah, Cloudhead, much respect, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, he's a one-man army on that, but I mean, you guys have like a whole team dedicated to doing this. The releases are beautiful. You know, this is stuff that we never had. There was no like production value on this level. Look, dude, it's on Red Bull. You know what I'm saying? Teams are looking, you know, real teams, serious esports organizations are looking to this, as everyone has already mentioned. Also, Smash has a giant void in online leaderboards that does not exist. You know, it's just for glory and hey, what's your win rate, bro? Of course, there's Anthers, and there was All's Brawl back in Brawl.
Smash boards.
And, you know, there's all the net play allowers and stuff. But yeah, nothing is even close to relevant in that space. So like, especially, you know, being that it's not in the client of the game. So I'm glad that we have something to show globally who the best players are. It's also a carrot on a stick for the players. You know, they're hungry for it. They're running toward that, chasing it indefinitely, and it brings people to events. You know what I'm saying? It's like, not only do you want to go see the PGR players if you're a fan or get a chance to fight against them, but if you're a PGR player, you know you need to keep attending. It consistently incentivizes you. Whereas the pot, which I think we all know, it's no secret that Smash tournaments have pretty small prize pools. That might not be enough, but the glory of even getting ranked 50th or 49th in the world is enough to keep you going and make you go there. And it also centralizes the news cycle of Smash. Like every 6 months, you know, ooh, it's PGR time. And then everyone starts coming out of the woodwork, right? Like either to come to events and vie for a spot on the PGR or just to talk that smack, you know, because they don't agree with how the algorithms work and stuff. Either way, it's generating buzz. And I think that's one of the most important things. So those are the things I would point to that make the PGR really a very welcome addition to the Smash community, especially coming from the poverty days of Brawl, where again production value and community leadership were just like non-existent. So yeah, no longer are we comparing each other's local PRs to see like which region's the strongest or who would do well. Like there's, you know, not that that ever was viable or anything, but it's all we had to go off of back in the day, unless you want to include All Brawl, you know.
All right. So without getting too much off topic, and thanks Max for the kind words. I do want to say really quick to all that. Happy, thanks to like be doing that, but I do want to get to a question that Zenoto asked in the chat, specifically to Falln, asking, do you think you're going to be on the next release on Monday, or are you going to be in the 11 through 20 on Wednesday?
Well, today's release has me shook, honestly, because when I was just doing my own, like, in my head, like, oh, who did I do better than, who probably has me beat, I was like, you know, I'm probably like 21 or 22, but, you know, if it works a certain way, then maybe I'll sneak in like 19, 20. I actually think that this system, now that we see the confidence thing and all that, I think that's going to work in my favor. So I have my fingers crossed even more for a top 20 spot. But I think realistically, like I would have been fine at like 22 or something like that. And then if I get 29, then I'm going to be messaging you, Suar.
So you're hoping, obviously, for 11 through 20 over 21 or 20 through 30, is it? Right?
Yeah, I have no way of knowing.
Higher ranking?
I feel like if I were being completely honest with my performance, I would put myself at like 22 or 21 because I think I'm competing with like Esam, Abba, Rido, Elegant. Like I think I'm in that tier, and I think they have it over me. But I got top 8 at Genesis, baby. Like put me in top 20.
So you're hoping for Wednesday? All right, let me look right here where you were. Oh, okay. All right. Well, next week should be fun. So I wish you a lot of luck. I think we'll all be at a good place come a week from today, I believe. But yeah, I mean, definitely the fun factor's still there, and that's the other thing too. Like, man, It's hard. I understand leaks on a level that I never thought I would before. It's really hard, obviously, like if you're just tuning in, like with the PGR, like it's important to tell some players their placement when they're in the middle of a contract. Every season I tell players, listen, if you're in the process, you have like documented photo evidence that you're signing with someone, like let me know so you can like get that alley-oop so that like you can get the sponsor image in your player card and then it's this huge announcement, blah, 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 blah. But it's also hard because like if the one thing I know about the Smash community, aside from like, liking drama a lot and whatever, is that secrets never stay, like at all.
Yep.
If you want to like keep a secret in this community, you might as well just like type it as your Facebook post right now because it ends up getting everywhere. But then the other part too is like when rankings get spoiled, then the whole release cycle kind of gets tarnished. But I know that when it does get spoiled, it's not through the general public. And then the other thing too that I found is like it's kind of like Schrodinger's list, where like if you know the players or like you know the order, it doesn't matter until it comes out that day. And I in fact
Yeah.
like actually leaked like fake lists like just whenever someone asked because they like didn't expect me to say it and then like those fake lists have made it around and I was like, oh, that's
Yep.
really funny. People think that they're where they're gonna be. But as a joke, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it is crazy to see like the spectacle surrounding it time and time again. I think we have one more question or one time for one more question. Did anybody Kirby Rocket calling you Big Brain Max in chat? That's funny. Did anybody see anything in chat that they want to ask to the general panel? Mm, Let me see.
Looks like Wonder Bread had a question in there.
Can you read it?
Is there, I tagged you. Is there interest on the part of the PGstats team to attempt to normalize away events worldwide reach PGR consideration?
And talking to task, normalizing is a little difficult only because that's flattening a lot that we're still trying to sort of keep uh, as like qualifying in a way. Like it's like JJ Rockets hilariously enough released a video today talking about the Japan bias, but it's a meme. It's you got to see it.
Yeah.
And basically he took the square footage of all these different regions, again calling Japan a region when it's in a country. And like I think Hawaii had the highest density of PGR tournaments because it's Hawaii. And that to me is like again, we have to remind ourselves that we're trying to like pull out of thin air a officialized uh quote like almost and I said quote unquote like 50 times this entire like episode, but like quote unquote an officialized serialized tournament system. And like it's hard because I know there's snubs all the time where like there's a tournament that has like I don't know like somebody beat somebody like Mars at a New England regional, but it was like during the off season, or it was like too small and it was only like 30 people or 40 people, and like that should count, but also like it's not big enough. And so we've set the bar relatively high when it comes to the fact that Europe didn't even have a single PGR event this entire season, which like press F for Europe, but at the same time like it's difficult when like your main person like Mr. R is always over here and nobody travels to Europe. I think the last major thing, if someone can remind me, that people traveled to Europe for, did I studying
Beast.
Yeah, the Beast series, which of course then
Yeah.
blew up. So it's hard, So it's really hard for now to like quote unquote normalize. I will say that in some of the early tests we are trying to look at for Ultimate, like raw entrant count might be the way, only because we can't just do a TTS based on PGR players because we don't know if PGR players are going to be good in Ultimate.
Yeah.
But also, like, if this tournament's 2,000 people, dude, like, you won, all right? You won, and that's fair and square. And, like, after we build some sort of framework, then for the second season, then we'll have, like, our first top 50, and, like, we can go from there. But I will say it's a challenge all the time, having to, like, say this tournament doesn't count and this one does, because it's not like I'm trying to play God or we're trying to play God, but we have, like, events happening every weekend all the time. And I bet you guys can, like, empathize coming from Brawl, where like you wouldn't have big events except for every couple months.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
definitely a
definitely.
crazy wild time now. And of course with like the advent of Twitch and social media, like you can connect to any event all the time anywhere. So I think that answers that. And I think with it being 9:30 now, I'm gonna close out the show. It's so hot in this room. But thank you again, guys. We're gonna do a quick outro. I forgot to ask this earlier, but we'll go around starting from Max back up to Falln. Anyone you want to shout out, either that made the list on Tuesday or today, or that you really look up to in general, or like anyone you want to give thanks to or highlight. Max, we'll start with you. Just any general shout outs you want to make.
Yeah, I got to shout out Shoyo James again. This guy really put the New Jersey scene on his back. He's been organizing events, still crushing it at events, dealing with health problems, like not even just, oh, I'm, having like chronic stomach problems or something. It's literally his hands. It's the thing that most directly impacts your ability to play this game. And he's still just doing such amazing things for our scene. And yeah, man, I really respect that, to be able to play at that level still.
Yeah, firm handshakes all around for Shoyo James. I hope to meet him in person. I did meet him at Frostbite briefly, but like now that I'm in Tri-State, like hope to like really work with him and double down.
Also, shave the stash, James. Come on.
He did already.
Okay,
damn. All right, Kino, what's good?
No, I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, I'll shout out to MVD because again, I know he wants to make it higher on the PGR, but at the same time, everyone here played Brawl. We all know how much of a threat MVD's Snake was, and that thing's coming back in Ultimate, so I'm looking forward to seeing the work he puts in with that for sure.
Yeah, Ultimate, like, dude, it's gonna be open season. I can't wait. I'm sure
Oh,
all of us can't wait, but
sure.
it's gonna be. We'll see what those storylines will be great. It'll be good. It'll be good. But thanks, Kino. Zeke, what do you got?
Definitely shout outs to Captain L. Dude's put in crazy work, like I said before, and I'm definitely excited to see how his good work ethic is going to carry into the new game, because that's something that everybody else really does lack.
Yeah, I mean, tough words, but like if you don't put in the work, your results aren't just gonna magically appear. And
Yep.
I think Captain L's my he's my favorite newest player. He's really cool, really humble guy. So,
I would definitely agree on that. On a quick side note, as a Pikachu player, I absolutely love watching him play. Whereas before, Esam was like kind of the only Pikachu to watch, and now
yeah,
Captain L is he's so godlike. And Rydia too, but he's not quite PGR level yet. But yeah, shout outs Captain L as well. He's so good.
yeah, he's awesome. So thanks for that, Zeke. I'm sure Captain L appreciates it. Remzi, what do we got from Virginia?
Okay, so this is a little bit of a hijack question. I want to shout out the PGstats team because there's something I forgot to say earlier when you asked about the impact. And the thing that always killed me before was that we never had, I guess I would always ask, what's the Super Bowl of Smash? How does it unify? How do all these separate events, what does winning one mean? What does it actually mean? Okay, I won this random tournament. So what? And what PGR has done is it's taken these random events hosted by all these different people and brought them together with kind of a coherent single meaning. And I appreciate that so much. And thank you guys for doing that for our scene.
Okay, appreciate it, Remzi. I still can't put you on, but I still appreciate it.
I'll make you put me on.
5-time, soon to be announced PGR Cole Falln Rugs. Did I get that
me.
right?
Did you say Cole?
Did I say
Chris.
Cole? Chris. Jesus. God
Damn it.
I know. I tried
I
it.
can't wait for the typo.
You know how many?
Colagon
No,
Rags.
That's what I was thinking. Colagon Rags. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So Chris Falln Rugs. What are the final words you have for all of us? Shout outs, whatever.
I think from a competitor's perspective, I have to give the shout outs to Leo and Tweet because they not only are far and away above the rest of us, but they're also doing it with like 3 or 4 characters. And
Mad respect.
it's actually disgusting because, it's one thing to say, oh, Bayonetta's winning everything, but it's another to be like, these guys weren't even Bayo mains on release. They're like Generation 3 Bayo mains.
Yeah.
They like just adapted to the game and they're already kicking your ass. Like it's
They picked them up so late in the game and just were like, oh, we get it, cool, and we're gonna do it even better.
Yeah, it's actually disgusting. So that's what I'm excited for. Smash Ultimate is hopefully everyone realizes how powerful it is if you aren't one-tricking and you just play like 2 or 3 characters, 4 or 5 maybe. Like
especially with all the
it's
new
gonna be so great.
matchups. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
People are gonna get blown up day 1, 2, 3, all the way up. So definitely,
Mm.
Smash Ultimate will be great, as we all know. But once again, this has been the PGRV5 Roundtable. We had the gracious presence of Falln, Remzi, Zeke, Kino, and Max. You can give them a follow. It's in the layout. All their tweeters are there. But if you don't know already, on Monday, 30 through 21 will be released. Expecting a couple blowups there, just like usual. But yeah, thanks for supporting. Give everybody a follow that you want. Follow the PGstats Twitter at the PGstats, and we'll catch you next time for the next roundtable at Monday, same time, same place, 8 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/PandaGlobal. So this is everybody signing off. Have a good night.
Thank you for having me.
See ya.
Yep, and we'll see you later.
Peace, guys.